see
It's
that you
weird
care
for
about
me to call
something.
myself knitting cult lady, and then people are like, why are you always talking about cults? Or they still try to come get mad about the knitting, and I'm like,
They want a book. And see, and that's the other thing. Remember I said that? I was like, I'm not a book. You're confusing me with a book. I get so distracted by, the lip smacking and the finger wagging and the, well, okay, that sounds like a you problem. I have to change. You want me to be a book? I don't want to give you a book. Maybe that's also why I don't want a book, because I just don't want that easy out for people, maybe. Because white people just love comfort. They will love to buy a book and say, I'm going to read it. And I've done that, but I don't want to be on the bookshelf with white fragility. I do think that it's interesting language I've been noticing with caught up and figure it out, but like caught up. Where are you going? Who do you gotta catch? Hold on. And the up of it all, you're showing up and growing up and glow up and all this hierarchical language that we just don't even notice until you start to slow down. Unless, at least me, let me not project. I start to notice when I slow down. All of these, even like a breakup, they're very, yeah, but caught up is a really interesting one I hadn't thought of until you said it. But like that's a lie.
when you
That's
say
a
it like
white
that,
lie.
it makes me think of like when you step on those traps and then you're like caught up.
Oh, and they catch you.
And you like step on a trap and a big like
Another
net
word,
comes up and
the trappings of something. I was like, the what? All the trappings of
success.
this thing. Oh, it's literally it. That's the word. They mean that. We should be listening. That and flattering. That's flat. You flatter. You're that flatter. Less. Be a paper, please. Like literally, they want to turn everything into white man paperwork. Enlightening. You're light and you're palatable and you're tasteful and you're not unsavory. And anyway, but caught up. So just different types of language tropes we're just using all the time, as if when is up enough? Have you not done enough, Daniella? Is this, yeah, there's this lie of once I take care of this, I won't have to worry about, once I don't have to worry about this anymore, what? You'll stop worrying about life? You think you're just going to go away? You're just going to go sit down and, no, silly goose. But that's the
like my
word.
mom, before we ever knew anything about neurodivergence, just I think from having 8 kids, she used to say, I think everyone has a level of stress that they need to be at to like operate and kind of like be happy. And I think like for me, it's like, yeah, I wouldn't say stress, but just kind of like activity, like I'm always just
That's
like kind
different.
of doing something.
Of
And
course.
part of de-stressing my life is having all these little projects and activities that I'm doing that are kind of creating activity, right? It's just like an energy expenditure versus like something that actually stresses me out.
Right. And that makes sense, but it's the narrative of how are you enjoying that? Are you being present in it? Because this is all the stuff I'm working through as well. It's like, it's why you have to, why are you doing this? You're doing this because you like to do it. That's what's important. And look at what you get to do and all of that. But if this isn't enough for you, to feel caught up, you're always going to be in progress. Like, there's no ending. And I thought about this just yesterday when I was talking to my other white friend, who I talk about white people things with, but just offline now. It actually started on TikTok as well, but we're just like one of my best friends. But like, there are no endings in family stories unless you're a white man and you decide it. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to decide this ending. But that's there is no happily ever after the death. It's retirement, it's end times, it's doom, it's you're caught up. Then what? It's okay, calm down. But if you're seeking the graduation, the wedding, the thing. And then after that, you'll be able to whatever.
That's been something I've really had to work on in therapy. And in fact, like one of the reasons I started therapy again most recently was because I had to turn in a book and then wait a year for it to come out. And I was
Yeah.
like, I'm going to go crazy, like when you feel like for a whole year you're just waiting. And it actually very much reminded me of being deployed to war, where it's just like, you're
Yeah.
just here to do your job every day for a year. We call it Groundhog Day, and just like get through it and go home, and it very much, not
Uh,
to like
yeah. No, that's the
belittle the
same.
experience of prison, because obviously that's a very significant experience, but in
Yeah.
a way, those felt like very well paid prison, like you're on this block of ground that you can't leave. You eat these meals 3 times a day. These are your
Yeah.
choices, and you go here and you do this. And all of the things that you do for like joy or relaxation or community are taken away. They also, very interestingly, they take care of all your needs, right? You're
Yeah.
cooked for, your laundry is done.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it's because you don't have to drive anywhere, right? And it's because so they can work you more,
Yeah. They
right?
do the same thing in the Sea Org.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's, and it's just because it's the same thing. And with the Sea Org and Scientology, it's their military version. It's, hey, if you can't afford Scientology, because Scientology is very expensive. That's why I say America's a cult, is how it's my original connection there was like, oh, you go into the Sea Org if you can't afford it. And we take whatever. And it's the top tier and you're respected and you wear these outfits and,
I
you
think one of the
top echelon of
reasons I think one
following.
of the reasons why we don't want to have the conversation that, like, yeah, the military is a cult and it harms people is
Yeah.
because that's one of our best social elevators, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
literally, yeah, if you can't afford to do anything, you can go into the military. And
And
they
that's,
will
yeah.
give you all this training, give you all this stuff, right? But like in exchange for your literal freedom.
See, but like, and they're selling freedom. And it's like, if you can sell freedom, it's not freedom. Just like if you can purchase your freedom, it's not freedom.
Yeah.
It can be taken from you.
Well, and like I make this point in Uncultured in basic training, right? We're standing there, we're all at like the position of attention, right? And we're singing. This is like one of our graduation ceremonies, and we're singing, I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I'm literally in my mind, like looking around, and I'm
I
like,
just forgot
we are
about the at least
standing
part.
here singing about freedom when we are literally the farthest thing from free. Like, none of us is allowed to even move our bodies to a different position right now.
It's the prime. If you have to say it, you ain't it. Like, that's the first one. Because I mean, not first, but you know what I'm saying. At
Oh
least I
my,
know you're forced to sing it.
oh my
Like,
gosh.
you're not even.
Did I tell you I wrote, so there's a chant, there's a call and response chant in the musical. And I wrote it, and it's just, is it a cult? Is it a cult? Call it what you want. Call it what you want to. Jehovah's Witnesses, call it what you want to. And I just go on all of them, U.S. military, call it what you want to. And all of this, like, if you're not a cult, like, you don't have to tell us you're not a cult. If you are, the question of good cult, right? Because people give it to me all the time. And it's like, when you have a good experience, a good group experience, we had a pretty good group experience when we met up the other Wednesday night.
Yeah,
You
that
don't
wasn't.
walk away wondering if that was a cult.
See,
Right?
but that wasn't a group experience, in my opinion, right? Like, that was because
Yeah.
I didn't
You're right.
sign. I didn't
You're right.
say it's this meeting. It was like no one knew. It wasn't a defined thing. I don't know if people were gonna know what we were gonna. There wasn't an agenda. Nothing.
Yeah.
You
You're right.
know.
There was just a community meetup.
Yeah. It was like we have similar thoughts. It's why I feel comfortable going to these things and don't leave the house very often, but because I just understood certain things about this environment, is that this community, that's why I feel more comfortable when there are more people of color. And even if there were all white people plus me and my friend, I knew at least it'd be safe enough for me to speak the way I speak because there are these things set in place. She knows me. I feel safe, but like I knew she understood the way I grew up as the way she grew up. So when I say all these things about Tina, she has the same stuff. So one, makes me feel like, okay, I'm not crazy, right? Like we didn't know white people were like this. She was like, yeah, no. But that was interesting. One, before I talk about that, the leader of the free world, that's a phrase. That's a phrase. We all are like, yeah, the president is the leader of the free world. Now, who put that sentence together? Who said, yeah, well, probably, I guess it was a co-leader, right? Leader of the free. Are they free? How can they be free if there's a leader? And you're the leader of the military, which is literally the opposite. You're leading them. They can't be free if you're leading. It's like Daenerys from the Dragon Ladies. She's gonna be the one who rules them the best because she is a woman who suffered before, and that's enough. I want to, anyway, leader of the free world.
Really? So first of all, the way people were surprised with how that ended was funny to me. But
yes,
she's
the
really kind of
breaker
the
of
perfect.
chains.
She's really kind of the perfect example of white feminism, right?
Yes. I have so much written on her in my docs that haven't gone anywhere so far, and I'm realizing that there's a connection for me between selling. There's like how I feel about publishing my work in any kind of way is almost like selling my crochet stuff. Where I'm just like, no, I do it, I do it for me. And the idea that like, so maybe some of the stuff that I've done in terms of active listening and stuff like that, I would put out and publish. I feel a little bit more disconnected. It's like the first blankets I did. Wait,
So
why am I talking stuff like that? But
I wonder if some of that is related to the fact that like you don't want to be selling.
right. Yeah.
So like for me, I've
Yeah.
noticed like selling, like I love selling, right? But I hate fundraising. Right. So like I have a
Yeah.
fundraiser right now for Culting of America. Like, why wouldn't I? It's a crowdsourced book, blah, blah, blah. But I just like I barely talk about it because I think I have this like fundraising trauma, this outreach trauma,
Yeah.
it makes it not fun for me. I don't like the optics of asking people to like give me money that probably have less money than me. There's just all these things that come into it. But when
Yeah.
I can go, oh, I can make a product, right? Like even for the trip to New York, I was like, we're going to New York for Pride. So I'm making a bunch of these collars that I make that are going to be Pride collars, and I'm going to sell those, and I'm going to put the money toward the trip. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I love doing that, but I
Yeah.
hate
That makes sense.
asking for money. And with you, so like part of why I want you to write a book is so I can sell it,
Yeah.
And I wonder if part of, because so like with your crafts, right? Like you always have to be selling them, and then that takes away the joy of it. But like if
Mm,
and I think for most authors, like most creators, like that's part of it. It's like it takes away the joy of it because now you always have to be selling it.
yeah.
I think I found a way to sell books where I'm not always constantly selling them. I'm just reading them and talking about things and whatever. So it's like it's not a drain for me.
Yeah.
And then if you put your product into words, like it's not something that needs your time anymore. But I also
Yeah, I guess
understand
that's
like all
true.
of your reticence around it.
Yeah, and just like, there's the things that always pop into my head, and I know that maybe they're just like ways of me avoiding, but this kind of like externalizing of my brain in a way, and that people can go, and I just seen what people do with books sometimes. I'd be like, like, but I
Oh
don't
yeah.
think that's the majority of the people who would buy the book. It's just that sometimes people, I don't know, also the books that I'm reading and reading about when it comes to like, as I'm still researching, I also feel like it feels very final, but there are things that I could talk about. Like I said, like the act of listening, because that was one thing I want to talk about to you about with your event. My friend noticed, just because it's always fun for me. But so like that stuff I think is useful. It's a little instructional, but this like, so I'm just like learning so much about whiteness and where it comes from. So when I think about the words like flattering and stuff like that comes to me randomly any day, right? Just I'm listening to something and someone says this is flattering, 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 and then and it could, I like the knowing that I can change things at any time, add to stuff and take away stuff, and the fluid nature of videos and Patreon and this long term, you know, investment that has to be made when people invest in me as like a long-term person and growth and journey, blah blah blah, versus I bought her book, which is like they did me a favor, or they're like, now I just get, it's almost like easier than
People
saying
do. I lose it with people when they do that. You know, I bought your book. And I'm like, okay,
right,
did you get one good book? Like,
you know, and the way they feel good
they feel like they
grading me
own part
now,
of you now, you know? It's like,
yeah, and like they feel entitled to something. Whereas if they're on my Patreon and they're listening, I already know those people. I've gotten a couple
yeah.
layers of entitlement broken down after a little
So,
while.
okay, I just have to tell you like a few things because you'll like do a bunch of stuff with this language. So,
Yeah.
first of all, there's this concept called death of the author. Death of the author.
Depth or death?
Death.
Okay,
Death,
okay.
right?
That's what I thought you said.
Which is literally like when you put a book out there, right? Or something written, like that story stands alone, right? Like it doesn't
Yeah.
really matter what the author intended, right? Like that thing has now become its own work of art that will take on a life of its own,
Yeah.
right? And so that, first of all, I think is a interesting concept that you'll have fun with. But then like especially as a memoirist, it's so weird because you have to write your story and your story has to have an ending, but
Yeah.
you're still alive,
Right.
right? So
But like,
there's a
does
process
it though?
of no, I mean, like, you can write more, right? But, like, the book has to end, right? So, like, as
Yeah.
someone
I see what
writing
you're
the
saying.
story, you have to choose. Like, you know, so I always say, like, Uncultured is a story of my life from the ages of 1 to 27. And then I poke my head back in the epilogue 6 years later and I give you a nod, right? Whereas Un-American is going to take you through my part of my 30s, you know, so it's like it's going to come further. There's a different ending to that story, but like in both cases, like you're still alive, so you almost there's a process, I feel like, of dehumanization that you have to go through when you're putting your story onto the page,
Mm-hmm.
because you're like, or maybe it's not dehumanization, but it's like dissociation with that as your own story,
Yeah.
because you're not that person anymore. Could you also bring me the charger, Mama? Plug it in for me. Thank you.
Well,
That's
so
so
I don't know
cool.
about that. Right? Because I feel like a lot of this is so traditional writing. Because as I read Octavia Butler more, it doesn't feel like her books end, really. It's kind of like, I mean, they end.
Yeah.
You're like, "What, it's over now?" Kind of is how it ends. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't, and there are, I don't know, I feel like we've just gotten so accustomed to certain things, and maybe that's why I don't, because people's expectations are there. Maybe that's the other part, is like, especially my audience's expectations. If they found me, White Woman Whisperer, oh, let me buy her book, boom, they buy the book, and now it's almost like, whoa, that's your, I don't know, you know.
Yep.
There's a lot of, what I was going to say is the people, so just like the world of book writing and what it means, right? But 19-year-olds write books, especially the ones in evangelical spaces, all the time. I feel like 19 is a specific age I've seen pop up recently a lot in the studying I've been doing white peopleness. And these 19-year-olds are saying how to be a woman, how to get a man, how to, what I'm doing, how to, I think 11 and 19 are interesting ages for things and lots of people's stories. But Fascinating Womanhood is a book. Tia Levings, you've spoken about her, I think. I'm listening to A Well-Trained Wife. And the books, the way these systems all use books, and listen to the phrase, I do things by the book, as in that's the right way. Do it by the book, as in according to the rules. And it doesn't matter what the book, like who wrote the book, why the book. It's just the fact that it was put into a book and authored and published gives it this credibility. And it's almost like this opposite thing with what Black women and white men, or is like white womanhood, if you're towards white men, because Fascinating Womanhood was written by a woman. And I'm just hearing snippets of it through Tia's book and hearing how, oh, don't laugh like this. Don't pout your lip and bang on his chest and do all this stuff. And that's a woman, that's a white woman who wrote that book. Two other white women that this is how you do it. It's grandmothers and mothers to daughters that like, we are doing this to each other and then saying, it's the men are so terrible, the men are so terrible. Well, who's raising them? That lady who told you this too? Because he just make it work once you're married. Now it's your responsibility, the victim blaming and everything like that. It's just like, these are people writing books too.
Jeff. Have I told you about the Jeff of it all?
Maybe.
Because my bad guy name is Jeff, right? And I'm like, why is it always a Jeff? And I'm like, oh, it's because of the white women that name their sons Jeff, right? Like they raise these little jerks.
Yeah.
And it's,
but then they were like victims of the own thing. And then it's like, yeah, because you're doing it this is self-imposed suffering. And I don't know what else to get, y'all. You're doing it. Like, you could stop, and you're marrying these and making these and then making excuses when they do stuff because you are the reason, and people will blame you, which is true. But now we're, it's not about blame and fault. It's about change and stop it. And not see, and using nuance and having it with everything and going, well, does it have to be like the whole? And Octavia Butler's writing, especially like it's a lot of fiction work and it's Afrofuturism, right? And it just like tells a story, and then sometimes there's a follow-up story and sometimes there's not, and it just kind of like ends, and I'm like, that's how you ended the book? Yeah, that's how she ended the book. Like, yeah, you don't get a satisfying ending. And so my other, I'm gonna say her again, my other white friend who was online.
Oh my God.
What?
I said Roots? Like, I know that story has some whatever, but like when they just sell Kizzy and you just never hear about Kunta Kinte again, like I was like,
oh, I actually have not watched Roots. I know about it. I understand all the things.
Because they're following a generation, right? But every time the generation is split by force, you just never hear of the other ones again. And it was so, I remember just being like so shocked and then having to be like, well, yeah, that was the reality. He just never heard about his daughter again. She just never heard about him again. That was.
See, and that's 12 Years a Slave. It kind of tried to give you, but that's because there's a lot of white savior in that, right? There's a lot of white savior. There's an even happy ending in that. And I still didn't matter. I was still pissed when I went to work the next day. I would still wear straight hair at that time. Ooh, that was, I think, you know what? That probably did begin my journey of awakening, because I didn't realize I was the only Black person in my office till I watched that movie, and then I had to go to work. And I'm looking at all these people, and I'm just like, you'll never feel. Just like the awareness. It was just so different just because I had the feeling and there was no one to talk to about it. I could talk to my mom about it, but I just realized in the office. And maybe that's why I didn't realize, because I just thought, I thought all white people were the same. And they were not. But one of, my best friends, like I said, she's white, right? But and I think it's interesting how people react to her as a creator versus me. And we do very different things. She's a comedian, but she made a series about what they call the Sandwich Family. She made them up, right? But it was kind of a play on these family vloggers. And it had something to say in the fact that it didn't portray it like a fun time. But everyone was so hooked on her series, hooked on it. And it started to affect her so poorly, but she's doing so well. And I'm just like watching this happen. And it's like, the better you do, the worse it is. And there's so much entitlement, so many expectations. And they want, anytime she does anything, they want her to finish it. Like, give me the ending of the Sandwich series. But it's like 7 siblings just living a life that she made up. And there's so much anxiety around it now for her. If she wants to post it, go back to it, not. There has to be some kind of ending. And I'm thinking, no, there doesn't. There isn't. That's a white man thing. Why do you think that? You think stories end when you stop telling them? You think
they do?
They do. Oh my God, that's tree in the forest. If the tree falls in the forest and it doesn't make a sound, no one was there to hear it, did it make a sound? That's that. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Did it make a sound? And that's gaslighting. You're confusing. That's your profound question. If I'm not there, did it happen? No, I guess is no. The way you're asking it sounds like maybe not. I don't know. Am I? And that's what they want from us. Anyway, but so that's kind of my hesitation around writing a book. I was just talking to Christina about it after. I have to work through stuff with it myself because there is a legitimacy that it gives you. And I don't know that I want that.
But yeah, like even when you were talking about that, I was like, I mean, part of what I'm trying to do in my life is divorce how much I have relied on white supremacist systems. And it's hard to do that when you've published, it's like, well, I went and got a master's degree. I went and published a book. I went and did all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And now
and you're still feeling like you have to catch up and stuff. Right. And like, I'm watching, I see that and I see it in other people. I see it in me. I see it. And I'm just like, I want, and I feel good about what I'm doing now. Now I do have so many documents. I've got spreadsheets with just my phrases. I know I want to do something with them. I know something will happen with them, but I do like kind of figuring out what is this resistance? Like, what is it? Because it's there. Because at some point, Christina was like, you'll do anything but write this book. And I was like, yes, I would rather go on tour and interview a bunch of people and have like active conversations right now. It feels more synchronous to me.
I just think you're still figuring out. Like, you're building a theory, right? So like when I wrote Uncultured, that was my story. Like, you can kind of sit down and write your life story whenever you want.
Oh, yeah.
But
and
what I realized with Culting of America, like, that is my theory about cults. That is everything I know about cults.
Yes.
I've put down in one book, and I can see where, like, I was defining that, and I think you're still, like, I've seen things from you written that I'm like, oh yeah, this is a book at some point, and it's, and maybe it's not, right? Maybe that's just my thinking, but I think, like, because when you're actually, like, building theory, it just takes
right.
That's but what also, it feels like. I do think there is reticence because books are final, right? So like now, I mean, when I give Uncultured to people, especially to Black women, I want to apologize for it in some ways, like that I didn't take on the racism in the military more, right? That I was, like the way, and it's so funny because a decade, like really you should wait a decade to write about your life experiences, and I was still 7 years out of the military and I was still held that commission from President Obama, even though I wasn't on active duty. And I remember it was so hard for me to give that up. And like, I was surprised at how hard it was for me to resign the commission. And so now it's like, when I look at this book, I'm like, yeah, I am still too, uncritical of the military in certain ways, right? Like I really hadn't started to unlock the imperialism of it all and these kinds of things. And I have to just give myself grace and be like, I was 33 when I wrote that. Right? Like, of course I'm going to evolve, I would hope that I would. And it's, I made it the best, but I can make it at the time. And I just have to kind of not mind that people are going to say, because now that I've talked about it on the podcast, I'm seeing it in the reviews, like 5-star reviews where people are like, yeah, it is a white feminist book because she was a white feminist. And now I hope that I'm moving through that, right? And I'm going to do another book looking at the whiteness of it all and whatnot.
Yeah, time continues.
By the way, I use that phrase all the time now, just like the whatever of it all from you. It just like helps me.
Because it gets the point across. Like why,
And so there is that, right? And it's like, even now, like, well, I'm putting everything I know about cults in. I even remember from the time I finished the book to the time I recorded it, I kept being like, oh, did I put this one thought in it, because I was so like, I've recently developed these, so there is definitely that limitation to where like, it's not dynamic, but at the same time, it kind of becomes immortal. And obviously we have videos and whatnot, but it's like,
immortal. You're making me hate it more. That's so white. What is with
but like
it's
if we
giving
didn't have
legacy?
Octavia Butler's words,
I
then
know. Yeah, that's
that's
true.
my
Yeah.
thing with
Uh,
it, you know?
but people will have my videos. I'm sure videos will
Yeah.
still work, and people can chop them up and we can edit them later and make them into.
And
I
it's
also think about
also
that.
the question of like we don't even know the things we lost when we lost rich oral history traditions. Right? Like people don't have memories anymore the way that people used to have memories because it
Right.
was just a skill that certain people had, right? To just hold all the histories in their
Well,
heads.
you know what? I just sorry. Like all these thoughts come to the top of my head. It makes so much sense because white women don't know how to listen. And everyone wants to be the storytellers because they were maybe silenced at home. You got your white lady stuff, okay? No one listened to you at home, and then people are listening to someone, and you're like, oh, I also should because I agree and I relate and I'm excited, and you're talking, and you're not listening. But of course, because you don't, there's so little value in just listening. As much as people like podcasts, I don't know if they're listening to tell other people about them or if they're listening and being changed. Because so the reason I said that is I talked to my best friend like 2 days after Daniella and I met for the first time in person at this event. My best friend, who is a part of the White Woman Whisperer team, is just me and her and Fran. She came with me, and she had a great time. And I knew she would. That's not ever an issue for me and
She's
her.
so lovely.
She's great. She loves what I do, what we do. She doesn't necessarily listen to the show, but because she's working and stuff. She's not a podcast girly, but she was talking about. She said, "I had so much fun, and I understand how you guys have a podcast because you can talk." Right? And first, my white hat kicked in. I was like, "Oh God, we talk too much. I talk so much. We talk too much. Whatever." But she was like, I had a blast, but I realized those white women, they were really nice. Everything, but they wanted to talk so bad. I felt it. Like even people would look at me and they look at her and be like, okay, like you and I should talk. But she was just listening because she understands what we're talking about. And I'm realizing, oh, that is like the podcast. We were just having it in person because what we do is chat about the things that come to our face. And she was just listening a lot of the time. But then, have conversations over there. But, that she had both of those feelings. I had a great time and I could just sense these white women's physical need to speak and tell their story and connect on that level. And I understand that it comes from such a lack of community experience, right? Like you don't have your time and space to talk. And that's why our space is needed and why I knew if you were down for this, I knew it would be great because just the things we have to say and that we could keep going. And that the first time we talked wasn't, we talked about doing this and we were just and time flew. I was like, yeah, this is gonna be perfect. But that's what
I
she
mean,
took away, and she doesn't even
this
watch my
even
stuff.
goes with when you decide to write a book. What I got hit with from my white community was basically every version of what gives you the right to tell your story. Literally so much that I said to my agent, I was like, what do I say to this? And he just looked at me. He was like, Daniella, the First Amendment. The First Amendment gives you the right to tell your story, But
Yeah,
that's the attitude, especially when you're telling trauma stories, right?
I don't
Especially
like his answer, but he is a man.
everyone was fine with the idea of me telling a story if it went, I escaped a cult and became an
Oh,
army captain and I was so good, right? My family, they were fine with me talking about the craziness of our life as long as it was like, yeah, but I speak 3 languages and I did all that and right? So it was like, as long as you're telling it with the cult control, everyone's fine with it. But as soon as you decide that your story has value in it and you're going to tell it, people lose it with you. And I've never thought about that as a whiteness thing before, but it's obviously is.
How dare you? What?
And that's
That
definitely what
phrase.
I would say my community is, a bunch of people who just they've never been able to be like, hey, I had childhood trauma, I had group trauma, I have religious trauma, and people just say, yes, tell me about it, right? And not have people going, oh, come on, but the Mormons are not so bad. Like, oh, come on, but Seventh-day Adventist, right? You know, and it's just like, just
The
hearing
invalidation
them,
is wild.
just hearing them. Right. And like, even a lot of times when we try to talk to our parents about it, it'll be like, oh, but I didn't know. And I always say, like, but you know now, right? Like, hear us now.
What do you, yeah, what? Because they're protecting something, an image and a person. Whiteness, that's just whiteness. It's just, this is why you should be quiet. This is why you shouldn't talk. And
And
otherwise, you should prove to me why I should care about what you are saying. And that's
yeah,
not something
and
I
we're
want
told
to
this. So,
engage
and
with.
as long as you want to talk, if you ground it in expertise, it's fine. If you ground it in, you know, some certificate or some something or some job that you've done, but as soon
Right.
as you're trying to ground it in, like, I lived through this experience and I have something worth saying, right? Everyone's like, why?
See, and I'm not trying to convince anybody. I just got actually I'm gonna read it. I got a comment today on an old video. So a black woman had whatever. She found me recently. She's just been going through my stuff. And I just love when black women find me and I just see them going in, going in. So it's on an old video, but it's me telling someone I want you to do me a favor, hold your breath and wait till I try to convince you of my humanity and then you can let it go. Right? I don't remember doing it. This was during the Man versus Bear. I'm still going back before I got demonetized. And she says, I adore you for this response. Oh my goodness. Your response videos are so cathartic, but I hate that you've had to do them. Your existence affirms my humanity and I hope I can do the same for other black women. And that's on just like the old video of me just being like, I will never be in the position where I am approving this message. It's someone, someone saying, I keep waiting for you to answer the questions of that people are asking and you just never do it. And I was like, and won't. It never will, and that's maybe also why I don't want to get into this industry that thinks it's such an honor that I be included in part of it. Like I wrote a book. I almost just, part of me, maybe it's also that neurodivergent part of me that's just like, I'm, no, you have to
Well, I
care
mean,
more about me than like the
this
papers.
is a real thing that has been hard for me to deal with. And this is part of why authors don't broadly tend to interact with their readers, because people literally will do it as kind of this form of ownership, right? And there's two different ways, right? People will say to me, I read your book, I love your stuff, I have a question, right? And that's just because they don't, like, there's
Yeah,
limited
they're trying to set
characters.
the,
There's limited
which,
characters and people want to know me to know, like, I come as a friend, right? Like, that's fine. And I don't need you to have read my book to right? But people will then do, like, and it's always when I've checked somebody, right? When I'm like, no, no, no. And then it's like, well, but I read your book. Like,
it's the same thing as people being
they're
like, you're the
trying
white
to
woman
exert
whisperer.
ownership over my behavior
Yep.
because they've read my book, and it's just like, no, that's
And I
not
probably haven't.
what we're doing. I mean, that's also
But that's the thing. It's just like saying I'm black and no, they don't say that. They say as a black person. Black people don't say any of that, right? So, but that's what whiteness has told you, that what you say is all that matters, what you look like is all that matters, and if it can be proven, then we'll talk about it. But before it's proven to me, then I don't want to hear about it. And proven in what way? What do you mean proven? Proven that I would agree and do the same thing as you. If you have a different experience or you're like, I don't understand how people would do that. Okay, that's just information. Are you going to now try and understand, or are you just going to say that story was not worth hearing? You already heard it. And that's how y'all lost storytelling. I don't think we all lost storytelling, because otherwise there would be no understanding of Black history. I wasn't taught Black history for real. Medical apartheid, I found out a lot about through a person that I was dating, and he read that book, and that was, we still do that. Community will still inform you. And then that led me to other things, and then TikTok, and then people online who are sharing special interests. I realized that's what we're doing. We're just have special interests, and we talk about them. And because if it's not like this, I don't really want to talk at all. I'm like, I'm all or nothing, right? So
bothers people so much is something that's been interesting to me.
mm-hmm.
You know, that I know is like, I'm sure attached to whiteness.
Because
You
what
know,
kind
I
of people
don't,
are bothered?
I,
Who's
I
bothered?
don't, obviously a lot
Oh
of
yeah,
people,
you might
I
not
don't
know.
know who they are, who they're,
That's
huh?
true. You don't have the same.
Well, it's
Got it.
like I don't feel like I see a lot of usernames that I can tell like they've chosen to let you know
No, I
that this
forgot.
is not a
You
white
can't.
person,
Yeah, you
that are
can't.
like,
So
why are you just always talking about this stuff? You know, there's this
that's only
demonization,
white people. I
which
know
is
by the question
fascinating,
who it
which is
is.
fascinating because one of the things I say about the cult, the Children of God cult, was like, it was like there was a demonization of having special interests.
Yeah, that's
Right?
freaking
Because
weird.
anything that you were too obsessed with that wasn't Jesus, like took
Oh yeah, that
away
one's okay.
from Jesus, right?
That's so.
So like literally they took away our ping pong table because we played ping pong too much. You know?
Yeah, you can't care about things outside, like, because I've noticed the same thing with white people telling me, "Oh, you're obsessed with white women. You're obsessed with us," as if that's the gotcha. And I'm like, I don't get it because I made the page, you guys. Like, I'm not understanding. Or you're a lot. I see a lot of white in you, guys. My
That's
mom.
why
Did you? I bet. It's like they just see
that's why
that you
it's fun
care
for
about
me to call
something.
myself knitting cult lady and then people are like, why are you always talking about cults? Or they still try to come get mad about the knitting and I'm like,
They want a book, and see, and that's the other thing. Remember, I said that I was like,
book.
I'm not a book. You're confusing me with a book. I get so distracted by the lip smacking and the finger wagging and the well, okay, that sounds like a you problem. I have to change. You want me to be a book? I don't want to give you a book. Maybe that's also why I don't want a book, because I just don't want that easy out for people. Maybe because white people just love comfort. They will love to buy a book and say I'm gonna read it, and I've done that, but. I don't want to be on the bookshelf with white fragility. I don't want to be
I mean,
next to that.
this even makes me think of like my own book, right? Like it is easier to read it than to listen to it, right? Because when you listen to it, you have to hear my emotions, right?
Interesting.
Versus just staring at a white page with words on it, right? And people have said the other thing, said it to me the other way, where they're like, I couldn't imagine not listening to it because you almost kind of like hold me through all this like really horrible, awful stuff that's being described. But I remember being like, oh, who would want to listen to this book? Because you can't just kind of like dissociate and zoom over the really rough parts. You have to
Mm-hmm.
actually sit there and listen to me like give you all those feelings.
Yeah, like, what are we reading? I think I'm so confused about what white people are reading for. Sometimes, because what?
I mean, one of the things, you know, that's so interesting to me is that people will say to me, they will say, I loved your book. And then they'll immediately say, it made me cry or it made me laugh out loud in exactly one place, by the way. And I'm like, so I realized I was right? Like, that's the point of like art, right? Or like good writing. It's like if you can make someone spontaneously emote, like have this very strong feeling, they're
Yeah.
gonna walk away saying, I loved the art, right? Even though there's nothing to quote unquote love about my book. It's quite traumatic,
It's a
right?
weird thing. That's weird.
It but what I get what people are
I get
saying, right? That it was
100%.
like I loved experiencing this story or this book or just like I
Yeah.
appreciate the love is weird, but I appreciate it.
Right. No, I totally get it. I just, it's one of those things like I think we need better words for certain stuff about enjoyment
Yeah,
because
but
we
I
use love.
do think that we don't. So first of all, I think many, many, many white people use books to dissociate, especially like autistic white women. um, it's an escape. Like I'm always more comfortable with a book because a book is understood and expected and kind of like I am surprised when a book makes me cry, right? Like, I'm never like, oh, that's what I set out to do, right? Like, I
Oh.
just thought I was here to get the story in my head. So I do think you're always just like right on the money about this stuff.
Oh my gosh. I, that's interesting. Because even when I'm reading to dissociate, it's like mine is so different. I kind of like ruminate for dopamine, but in this, it has to be for work. Like just like Black women are bored, they go get degrees. Like when I'm listening to other stories, I'm working. Right? I'm listening, like I said, flattering. Oh my God, what is this? And that's just like a whole thing. This is what, oh, you know what? I don't know that this has anything to do with what I was about to say, but this older white lady is telling her story, and I'm just listening to the story. And she was a doctor's wife, and this terrible thing took over her spine or whatever. And the doctor says to her, this is something we only see in farm workers, interesting language, who are doing hard labor, and doctors' wives who wait too long, uh, whatever. White people? I heard enslaved people, because this woman is 75, okay? Sharecroppers and doctors' wives. Isn't that your pinnacle? Doctor's wife? Wasp? He don't even take it. You what? You're not even getting the benefit of if you're married to a doctor, he takes care of you. Literally, it's the opposite. They said that she just flew past that point, and then was like later the doctors, everyone was so great at the hospital. I made them a daycare center and whatever. I had to stop and like replay it. I've been doing this, like recording myself, because I just can't believe some of the things I'm listening to white people talk about. And then like they just move on, you know, poop cruise, train wreck, Astroworld, or the Challenger. We just move on. Next thing. And that is so, like, you guys aren't learning, you're dissociating and listening to people's stories. And that's how I dissociate and listen to stories. Like, as I'm building furniture, I'm listening to people tell stories. And it moves me, though, still. Maybe not always to tears, but like Black women writers, I started reading for fun. Kennedy Ryan, who I love. I've probably talked about her already on this podcast. She makes it's novels, they're so good. But yeah, I cried, I laughed, both. And I have video of me, like, just because I haven't read for fun in a long time since school trauma and stuff like that. And like the shoulds. And I think maybe there is some words flying off the page for me. But I was so moved by how she like described this connection between this couple. And I'm not a romance person. You know how I feel about romance and man being in the middle. But the way she wrote it, I was so emotional reading it for so many, like, yes, the way she wrote it and what she's talking about, and there's grief involved, followed by a very spicy scene, which I was like, oh my God, the emotional roller coaster was so good. But I felt held by her because she wrote it like a Black woman. Like I wasn't scared she was about to say something that made me realize, oh, you're white. Like I was vulnerable, and I felt like, oh, this is what it's like to read from a Black. And then I was crying because I was enjoying reading from a Black woman and feeling safe in her work with this very vulnerable stuff she's talking about, you know, miscarriage and divorce, but then rekindling and the romance. And I don't know. Yes, I don't believe these people exist in real life, but I enjoyed going on that story and dissociation. But yeah, there's discomfort in our stories. Like there is no glossy
stories without discomfort. There's also no good stories without discomfort. Yeah.
The plot.
Your description also makes me think of Tamari Jones, who wrote An American Marriage. Just another Black woman, exactly the same. So good, so good.
I've
Not
heard
exactly the same, obviously, but
right. But just
all those
in
things
terms
that
of
you're
like
talking
feeling,
about.
so much is considered, right? Talking about therapy, talking about like everything is in there. The struggle with Black men and going to therapy, but like getting and to get something out of it and understanding the experience differently. But there's no ending. It's not an end, and then that's just that book. And then there's another book she writes from a different friend.
Also, I struggle with like the mammy of it all when, you know, so I mean, I've been saying for years, like I live in Maryland, and I don't even know if my daughter knows that doctors can be non-Black women.
Mm-hmm.
And I love every time the medical professional comes out to interact and it's a Black woman, I'm like, safe. You know,
Yeah,
little young has been marked as safe. And part of my description is like they just don't marginalize anybody's concerns, right? So like the
Right.
exact opposite of the doctor's wife thing, right? They are
Yeah.
listening, Black women are listening to everything you say. They're asking questions, they're engaging. You don't feel rushed. You feel just like seen and
Yep.
understood. But then that immediately brings me to the like white
Yeah.
women
I
taking
wouldn't.
comfort from Black women, or like Black women having to come, right? So it's like,
Yeah. And we're
I think
not a
it's the same
monolith
thing you're
either.
describing, but it's a weird interaction for me of like, how do
Yeah.
I?
Because it's not universal, right? Not every single Black woman out there who's working is feeling her job or took her job because she cares, right? Like there are Black women
That's true.
who fall into the narcissistic category. There are Black mothers who are raising mama's Diddy's probably because of his mom. You know what I'm saying? Like we come in all of those things as well. So I think it's just to like give it the grain of salt. You're safer. Your odds are much better, so much better if you, but you know, in terms of like if they've gotten to a certain place in their career, they have more things they're considering. That's true. That doesn't mean they're infallible. That doesn't mean they are to be treated as your mother, because there's not. But statistically, the way people, you know, just give it the president thing. You guys feel so confident when there's a women. Give some of that give some of that up. But I do hear some of that, and I don't love when people talk about like I went to the doctor as a Black woman, and I was like, "Phew, I'm safe." You're setting yourself up. You know, it's almost like I can't get got by a cult.
Yeah.
Because Black women can scam real good too, because we know people. We've had to scam. So if you get scammed by a Black woman, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's your first little saviorship experience, and you don't know. It's not, you know, people start this kind of like helping thing, and it's like, oh, I believe all Black women. It just gone too far. You're swinging the pendulum too far, maybe, right? But it's the odds are more in your favor
Yeah.
around Black people, and I know that. That doesn't mean I'm like leave my purse everywhere, and you know, you just still you act like a person. Everybody's just a person. But now that you know, it's hard to unsee, of course. Um, but yeah, I would the sweeping brush thing. White people just love to make some kind of conclusion out of stuff, you know, too. And like these are the goods and these are the bads. I just use it as a filter. If a Black woman is saying it, she has considered a lot more things. I'm as far as book writing goes, if she's gonna write about love, I'm gonna like her book about love more than I'm probably gonna like some random white lady book about love. Now, that
Yeah.
doesn't mean I pick up the Candace Owens book. Look at dude, there's a lot going on. Candace Owens, whatever. I'm not gonna. We got problems. Everyone's got their stuff. We all live in the same capitalism. And like I said, me from 10 years ago would not have the same opinions me today has. And she was a Black woman too. You know, we're all works in progress. And like you said, the finiteness of books and how people use them, and like the objectivity of it's in this book is a problem. Like that's what people should also be questioning. That's what I'm saying about fascinating womanhood, or train up a child, that pearls the whole universe of we write books and this is okay, and they're all up. You can get them now. Like they have YouTube channels and stuff. That's in the same universe as me. You know what I mean? I don't. The
It's
worship of
funny because
Brit.
I've talked about the cool side of this, about like once you're an author, you're immediately the colleagues of everyone else who's written a book, and like you'll be surprised at who will talk to you, who will return your messages, right? Because
Yeah.
you're now in that same world. But I've never thought about it as, yeah, that also puts me in the same world as Candace Owens, and maybe I don't want to be there.
Right. Exactly. And like, yeah, it's the system of it all. It's the like, why am I writing it? Yes, I want to put these things together and make them easier, but I don't know that I want to make it that easy.
I mean, this was even one of my decision points for doing Culting of America as an indie book. It's like, well, I've written a book that is about deconstructing systems and looking at them deeper and looking at the problems. And maybe I don't want to publish it in the publishing system,
Right.
like.
And like once it's out, you know, it's one thing for me to just maybe if it's, you know, the systems are different. Patreon is different. Like I could just put it on Patreon and stuff and sell it as like an ebook and things like that, because it's for me it's more about journey and less about units. And I don't want to be dependent on anyone selling it. I don't know. I'd rather just like word of mouth storytelling, caring, like investing, like personal investment, and like that's the slow and steady route. I'd rather $5 a month for a couple months than $20 once, you know? But I like
I
being able to
have to
see
tell
what I've
you,
said also.
no, but I
And
also have to tell you what my white boy husband said when I started a Patreon. And he
with your
said,
who?
my white boy husband,
Oh yeah.
and he said, well, don't you feel a little bit guilty
I
about your
can't hear you.
business? He said, don't you feel a little bit guilty about your business model relying on people signing up and then forgetting to unsubscribe?
Oh, I do think you told me that before.
And I had to be like, babe, like, obviously you don't have all the perspectives, but I believe I'm providing value to the people who are subscribing here. And no, I don't. My business model does not depend on people signing up and then forgetting to unsubscribe. Like, certainly this happens in subscription cases, but I think it's one
Oh
of these
my.
examples of like maybe everything in sort of the white supremacy systems are so deceptive that it's hard for people to understand when it's not deceptive,
Like
if
the
that makes sense. You know, like I pay a subscription to Spotify and I do not feel scammed because I use it all the time to listen to music, you know? And like
right. It's such a
I
focus on. It's so zoomed in. And
it's
when I talk
just but
about
it was
being
just like
zooming
it
out,
was
like
like the automaticness of going to like, even you, a person who I know and love, who I know doesn't scam people and builds good products, like this getting people to subscribe to you is a scam. Like, but
oh wait, it
why?
reminds wow, it reminds me of how I felt about taking my medical leave. I felt like I
Uh-huh.
was scamming somehow. Even though like I was going to the doctor was giving me, I still somehow felt like I was gonna get caught. I don't know. It's something where it's
Well,
like,
no, that's super relevant because this is how veterans feel about using like their benefit, like getting benefits at all after the military. And they will literally say, my brother, my dead brother was one of them who was like, no, I didn't have enough trauma. Like, I don't need, like, leave it for the other people who need it more. And it's like, I mean, this goes to cults hate medical care, right? But it's like,
yeah.
yeah, even when there's a robust medical system, like best only complete coverage medical care in our country comes from the military. That's a whole topic.
And that's why
And
we don't have universal health care, because then no one would
right,
join the
right.
military.
And you can get everything covered when you're afterwards. I'm 100% disabled. I get a paycheck from the military. I go to almost all of my medical care through the VA, which is great as long as you don't need it. But people won't get it. And like a huge part of what I do when I talk to veterans is just say like, have you filed your disability? And if not, why not? And every time it's just like, oh, I don't like, this is workman's comp. This is, you sign that contract where you literally signed away your body and your life, and they promised to pay you for conditions that they caused or exacerbated. And yet we will give ourselves so much crap
I mean,
about who
look at how
deserves
we
it
feel
and who
about
doesn't deserve
sick
it.
days. Yeah, we feel like terrible if we're sick and then we start to feel better, but we took the day off, but we still lied. Like it still feels wrong. Even if you are sick, you have to say you're more sick than you are to prove, are we adults or not? Like this is but if I did not take that medical leave, I don't know uh, what I would have done. That's how I got here. That's how we got here, is taking that, is me knowing, finding out about that. And that was through a white lady who did happen to touch my hair. And so I understood the nuances because she learned so much after I started talking about this stuff. And that really impacted me because she genuinely, after like hearing me talk about it a little bit, was like, I see this, I see this, I see this. Oh my gosh. And I was like, oh, this is something and anything. And at the same time, I'm having these white men be like, do you know how to write an email? This is crazy about this 6 months. I don't know. Like all of the gaslighting is whatever. And she told me that medical leave existed. I didn't even know, like for psychological damage, you could FMLA, whatever. Her telling me about that changed everything, brought us here. And that day, I was like, where do I don't care. Give me. And, but still during it, and even, you know, people around me, especially Black people, are kind of like, you're doing what? Like, Don't you feel like it felt scammy to them too? And one of the biggest first like viral videos I made was like, hey, people, Black women, take FMLA. Did you know about this? I didn't know about this. A white lady told me about this. That's the first thing I wanted was for other women to know. Because I got like weeks off and paid. And that's what privileges are. If you don't know about them.
And speaking of which, friends, when you get out of the military, you can get 6 months of unemployment in every single state. Take it. Doesn't matter if you chose to get out. That's one of those things that people don't know. Yeah.
The white people and their aversion to, I was watching stuff about, you know, the family, whatever, and unemployment office. Oh, I'm so ashamed. You are indoctrinated to think being unemployed is like being white man single. Oh, that's what it is.
There was a study that showed that even when CEOs are unemployed, they begin to think that like they're worthless, they're never going to work again. And I'm sure this study was mostly done on white people.
Of course.
You know,
like loitering, I'll never get over it. As a word, as a concept, I want to say like white people aren't allowed to loiter in life, right? They're never allowed to. They keep moving. They're always just like, we don't want to do that. And they had to physically.
You have time to lean. You have time to clean.
And they mean that. And that's just. But then at the same time, they'll be like, this is how to make passive income. Passive income. I just thought about this today. I just saw someone say passive income. And I was like, hold on, wait. So smart if you have passive income. Because I remember saying mailbox money. So, but then they're the same people like, people don't want to work. Work ethic and laziness. And if you were smart like me, you'd have passive income. I'm sorry. What? What's happening? What is this place? Oh, it's the land of the free. Home of the brave. Run in your houses and grab your guns. I thought you were brave, guys. Well, there could be someone who's going to ambush all of us police with our guns and our bulletproof vests. That's why we're all standing outside the school. Sorry. We're all in a terrible play. This is the worst play ever. It's lasted too long. The floors are sticky. Turn the lights on. Clean up. Oh, y'all don't know how to clean. Sorry. We'll do it. And then we try and everyone comes in and they're like, what are these Black people doing here? What do you want? We're trying to help. The whole, like, Scientology going back to that is always reminds me like, oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's how I started realizing all this stuff and just like seeing it again now and watching it again. I'm just like, it's consistent. It's just a little America. And it doesn't, if hiding something, if there are sacred secrets, it's gone. There are no such thing. That is, if there are psychic implications, they know exactly what's going to happen and what happened and what will happen if you do this. All you got to do is, that's a time traveler. If you do this, you'll get this. Time traveling Tony. I've named him. And Tony is spelled like tone because it's usually to make you quiet. It's usually to shut you up. And it's like all you got to do is or if you had just blah 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 blah, oh, you're a time traveler. Because they could say, if you had just this, then everything would be fine. If you had just come to visit me more, if you had just said it a little nicer, if you had just voted blah 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 blah, okay. Now what? You time traveled. You told me exactly what would have happened. Why aren't you winning the lottery? I don't know. Some version of that. But that all comes from like listening to white people who wrote books. No, white people who listened to white people who wrote books. Gothard stuff. Based on nothing. It's that whole like white men, I'm going to say white men, will apply for jobs with 1/6 of the credentials, and women will apply for jobs with all of them plus and still be unsure.
Everything. And still not
because
be sure.
of all the questioning and stuff. No one questions these men. Why would you write a book? They just write the book at 19.
And like, here's another thing I've been thinking about, which is like being questioned then in turns makes you nervous and makes you feel like you have to defend and makes you right. So yesterday I was going on I had a little like meet and greet with a podcast host to talk about being on their show, right? And I've already been on this show and I already know this guy. and he was asking me questions about culture of America. Or he's give me an example of, and immediately I got nervous. And I literally had to say to myself in my head, I was like, Daniella, you wrote this book, you know this stuff, it's okay. Right. And I've just been thinking about that. Right. Because I've just been thinking about because I recently, somebody asked me, oh, I'm just curious. I want to know about your credentials. And then when I pushed back with this is competency checking, blah, 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 it became a whole thing. But
It's tone
yeah,
setting.
I've just
I didn't
been
like that.
thinking about that. Like, who do we question? And it's not that, of course I was going to be able to answer all those questions. I wrote the book.
Yeah,
But I got nervous just with the act of being questioned,
I don't think so. I think yes. No. I didn't mean no, but he's a white man?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that matters here, right? So you, in some ways, you probably also the way he asked the question.
Yeah,
We sit and we could talk about your book. I wouldn't ever say, give me an example. Oh,
that's true.
I wouldn't, because what do you mean? Don't tell me what to do. Like, I wouldn't respond well to that. But I'm not saying you understand nuance. I'm not saying he's a bad guy and blah blah blah. But that is a white man talking. There are certain ways people have conversations, which I realize I have to give up on thinking I can, right? Like, I can't meet someone the first time and be like, all right, let's record for a podcast, unless it's going to be all over the place. I don't know how to have a linear thought process out loud in an authentic, genuine way with someone I'm trying to build a conversation with. But if I don't know, the way white people interview is very, they already know. How can you already know your question if they haven't said anything yet? Like, shouldn't it be taken where it goes? But I do things neurodivergently, right? I'm a spider web thinker. Some people are like single line. I don't know. Give me an example. Boring. Because I only had one, what I would consider, interview with someone, and it was Kimberly Jones, who I'm obsessed with, who's written a couple books and wants me to write. She wrote How We Can Win. She's started me on analogies because she had a very emotional speech about Target and Monopoly and whatever. I had her on a live once, and I had so many prepared potential, but they were barely questions. They were just things in her book that moved me, and I wanted to hear her talk more about, I guess. I don't remember, right? But it was just in case there isn't something, I have these things I can go to. I never touched them because I was just so excited to talk to her, and she was excited to talk to me, and we went where we went, and it was community conversation.
Yeah.
None of my questions were give me, or I would have never said even expand on this or da 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 da. I would have just been, actually, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go back to because I still have the notes in her book, what I was going to say, because what? In the book, give me an example. The whole book is examples. Sorry, I'm not this. I listen to white men podcasters sometimes, and then I'm like, oh, I'm angry now because I don't like that he just interrupted. That was about to be a beautiful thought, and it's not their fault. Just like white women don't listen. I don't know what, I don't do white men. That's not I don't know them like that. I know white women, I know black men, and me, and dogs. Okay, maybe I shouldn't have, whatever, doesn't matter. I included myself in it. So if I include dogs, you're fine. I don't know. Can you hear the echo? There's an echo on my end.
Oh, yeah? You know dogs? Name 5 breeds of dog.
What year was the French Bulldog named French Bulldog? And that's whiteness. Oh, yeah? Well, prove it to me why you should talk and I should listen. What are you doing here? Why would I interact with people
I really
who come
enjoy
at me like that?
Yeah, I really enjoy telling that to people in my lives. I'm just like, nobody went out and got you and recruited you to be here. Like, nobody's gonna care when you go. Just people be like, what are you even saying? Who are you? And I'll be like, you, sir, are in my kitchen and you're announcing to everyone that you don't know where you are. Like, how embarrassing.
I really miss going live for certain things like that. And I loved, and I think I talked about this once before, when white women are moderating for me and shutting people down left and right, and black women get to come in here and just laugh, even that they get to watch that happen, is therapeutic. And I read the comment before, it's cathartic for them, and I do enjoy that part of We don't get to see that. When do you see white women coming and protecting Black women and their space and their voice and say, oh, everyone be quiet here. And even if they say something like that some people would consider innocent, you know, I'm just wondering. And they go, oh, you're muted. We told you, we told you to be quiet. Oh, it's, and you won't, nothing's gonna happen to you. You got muted for 5 minutes, you know, but people will. I'll see the comments later on my top videos like, why was I muted? All I said was, all I said, blah, 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 blah. And see, and that's why you were muted. Because why would you think going to a top video while I'm live to comment and ask me this? See how reactive? That's why we already knew you would get like that. So that's why you were muted. And there's community in that. And white women have a place here. It's just, you got to figure it out as we start learning and growing. But having my friend be like, I felt it. I felt that they really wanted to talk. But to me, that says white women can have community. You know, but when two experts are talking, you know, I get that. That's exciting. They should have, ooh, there's a lot of echo. They should have like a club where they listen to a podcast, talk. That sounds great, right? And Black women would probably be fine in those environments. They'd be shocked by the amount of talking, probably, and trauma sharing. So maybe not for a while, but like we could help. I don't know. The book thing is the like why y'all read versus why we read. Interesting.
I will say this, and maybe this is a good place to leave it. I very much appreciate having your perspective on the book and on my event. And I just wrote my note about whiteness, or literally it was just like author's note about whiteness and perspective and privilege. And it was like, yeah, all these things, right? Like, here's why I chose to write it. I did grow up outside of America. I did have these experiences. And also, I'm a white woman. I've waltzed through America, you know, and
Yeah.
like, I've tried to mitigate it, but I'm still a white woman and learning like exactly like it's almost like learning to be that. Like, you're a white woman,
1000%.
be a white woman and like be a good one.
That's
And
it.
but also just like knowing, right? Like there's, you know, I'm an expert on cults. I might be one of the more, you know, like knowledgeable ones in the world. And also, as I put, like cults have been defined by white Westerners, right? So even what we study, right, is
Right.
based on that. Like, how different would Jonestown have been taken if most of the people who died weren't Black, right? So like there are so many of these perspectives, and we can't
And
possibly like
it
have them
also
all.
limits what they do with the information. I've noticed a lot of times, even documentaries and books and how we talk about these events, it's all about what, not why, and
Yeah.
how in a legitimate way. Not like how did it happen to find fault. It's like, no, how can we all have been all parts of this, and how in the would we do it differently now? No judgment, but whiteness is all judgment and fault finding and imprisonment for that and blame. And so you don't want to be that, and you don't want to be the reason it happened. And it's like, you don't want to be white because the white people did all this stuff. Calm down, you're white. We can all see it. You're white. So what are you going to do now? Right? I'm light skinned. And there's a whole, like, I grew up with I had a friend who was a quote unquote best friend, was very toxic, but she was lighter than me, had green eyes, and was an only child. Right. So Black people will understand that I understood I was the dark person in that dynamic, right? But and before that, I'd lived in a white town, but I've also been friends, and you met my best friend who was darker than me. And so when we would go out later in life and men would always try to talk to me, I knew why. And it wasn't because I'm more beautiful than my friend. No, she's gorgeous. It's because I'm light skinned. And I knew it based on having been not the light skinned friend in a different light skinned duo. And she got the green eyes, but she also embodied it more because she was monoracially light skinned and Black. And as a whole, we have our own understanding, but no part of me would go, well, I'm not light skin. Like, they're not. That would make my friendship with her very difficult if I believed certain things about, they're all just approaching me because I'm just more beautiful. What? No.
You know, one of the things I've really learned from you, and this just ties in perfectly to my intelligence training, is like your perspective is not wrong. It's just your perspective. And what's going on in the world right now is like we've had quite enough of white men's and white women's perspectives generally.
We got
And
it. Yeah.
and they're not wrong, they're not worse. It's just like we've had those, and we want to make space for these other ones. And like, so in intelligence training, right, when you get a mission, the first thing you do is you go list out all the things you know and all the things you don't know. Right. And we have this quadrant that we call the intelligence quadrant, and it's like the things you know, right? Like all we know, all these things, just boom, 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 right? The things you don't know that you know, which is interesting. You can't usually list those ones out. Those are usually institutional knowledge or things that you find out like during the planning process. Then you have things that you know that you don't know. Those are the questions we're trying to answer. Like that's like our actual work. We're like, okay, we don't know this, we don't know this, we don't know this. Then we go collect intelligence. And then you have the dark quadrant of intelligence. The things you don't know, right? And the only way you find out the things you don't know is when you screw them up or they blow up in your face, or somebody with a different perspective that has that information tells you things. So that was actually one of the cool things in my note where I was like, so, part of limitation on perspective, right? That's why we brought White Woman Whisperer into this project. And then I was like, and also my other perspective that I have is you, the audience, because I've done this with every basically topic of this book is like, talk about it, take it out, stress test it with the audience, get all these different stories and examples back. And then that expands my perspective.
Community.
And exactly.
It's
Community.
literally like, that's why TikTok is such a beautiful thing, as much as it's gross, right? Just like things can be nuanced in that way, but access to information and perspectives is why it's so powerful and what we should really be seeking out of it, not judgments on perspectives. And most people probably aren't. The loudest people are probably the ones, with judgmental opinions and I can't believe and who would do. If people speak in just rhetorical questions and statements only, that's whiteness. Like, that's just like, real questions, like, where do you think this comes from? That's a good question. Not give me an example.
And
that
even,
person pissed me off.
So there was even something else that you said to me, which was like, I knew I was going to like this book because we've been talking about these topics the whole time, versus like the whiteness way of doing this is I wrote my whole book, then I gave it to a Black woman to read it. Like that's what I did with my first book and was like, tell me what's wrong. But when you give someone a fully developed book, they can only tell you so much, right?
Right.
And that was like, like now I'm like, now that I've seen your notes, right? And I'm like, yeah, that you pointed out really important stuff. And also, it would been a whole different conversation if you and I hadn't been doing this for a year while I was developing that. And like every time I have a new concept, I come to you and I'm very little bunny excited about it. And then you're like, well, here's this, here's that. And please don't say all of us,
Right. Right. And I'm just like, because I hear it and I'm like, oh, because I also know my homegirls, right? If I'm going to tell my homegirls, if I'm going to tell someone to read it, because I want you to look good, right? I don't want that. I'm not trying to have them give you the side eye or whatever. And you know that. And so there's so many things that are just already set up for success, whatever that means, in terms of I'm going to read it. I knew there's not going to be this kind of like glaring thing. It was just in sentences and probably,
And I learned a lot from this process, right? Of in like both cases, both books that I write, I do not want to come off as a racist, right? Like that has always been one of my goals. But the difference of kind of like, I think the whiteness perspective of being like, oh, I just got to fix myself and make sure that there's nothing that can get caught versus just like understanding, just being like, I'm a white woman. I've had these experiences that give me a different perspective, and I've had these experiences that limit me. And that's where I'm starting from. And you need more voices to this conversation, and we need to do that. Like, that
Yeah.
to me feels safe
Isn't it?
versus when I put uncultured out and I was like, oh God, I hope I didn't say anything wrong.
Yeah, because it's a lot more conclusive. I feel like that's one of my like ABCs of interpersonal colonialism, which is basically like narcissism, like right there. Someone described it as that, and I was like, I love interpersonal colonialism because that's when people are trying to get you to feel they're getting in your head, and the all. So it's A is like all when they just do this. Everyone thinks like this, or no one thinks like this, and the caps, all caps. Um, Binary thinking and conclusivity. Like there's this level of this is at the end of the day, at the end of the book, the end times, doom, all this stuff. Very, when you put out a book about your life, even though you're saying like this was this time to this time, it feels very final. And you have to say that versus just being like, here are some words I
Yeah.
wrote. I had a fun time writing them. You like the things I think, but it's like
I
all
love
these
the way. I love the way we ended the book, honestly, because it's just like, I thought it was
the
going to be very
truth.
dissatisfying, right? Like, I thought it was going to be very, very dissatisfying that I was going to get to the end of the book and be like, nope, sorry, not going to tell you about good groups, not going to give you any answers. But I actually think, like, that's just true and comforting. And of course, since I let you have the final word, like you gave everyone the
I
holding that they
really,
need, I
yeah.
guess. You
And
know?
it puts it back on them. Like,
Yeah,
this is
and to
on us
just be
all.
like, I wrote this thing. This is a conversation. This is not the end all be all. This is a conversation that I want to have with you.
I
Let's have
love
it.
that. I like
I'm
that
so
a
excited.
lot, actually, because that's what we're missing. There's lots of debates and very few conversations, even in podcasts. Lots of interviews and debates. And what about conversation? And it can be that simple. Oh, I really like that. Mm.
That is interesting too. Now you have me thinking about like there's very different podcast guests where you feel like you're defending your perspective or the book you chose to write, or you feel like you're like sharing it. And
Right. Like, if this person,
I've never really like defined it in those ways, but I bet if I made lists and I went and I looked, one side would be more dominated by white men than the others.
mm-hmm. Because it's all about proof and their proof and their power plays and
Yeah.
they're not there for the conversation. They're there for the image, performance, setup, legitimacy, credibility, and
Prove it. No,
to
this is a
who? What have
theory.
you
A
done?
theory.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this has been such a good conversation. Also, something else that I now know about Rebecca, she's tiny.
And I was wearing heels.
I was thinking about that afterwards too. I was like, oh she's like tiny. You're like 5 foot, huh?
Yeah, yeah. On a really good day, I'm 5'2". I give my hair a push up.
With hair? With hair?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I forget I'm small
Did I
because
tell
people
you
always say
about when
that.
I found out? So, one of the few physical characteristics that we identify with charisma is tallness.
Mm.
And I think that has to do with just like being larger than life, right? And kind of like there's a
Yeah.
too tall range also that we think is scary, but tallness, charisma, most of our presidents have been tall, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that, and immediately what just came into my mind was these African women with their very tall hair. And I was like, so Black women know everything.
You see, we're just trying to help y'all, and I love art pieces where the hair is just. Listen, just let us be.
I mean,
Everyone will be
giant
better off.
headdresses. Like, can we go back to that? Why did we give that up? Like,
White women is why. White women said
I know.
it's illegal, actually.
I know. I'm making a giant headdress for my psychological operation costume for Halloween.
I love it.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be very like Brazilian and African influenced. So.
Love that. Oh,
yeah.
We're doing such a good thing. I feel really happy about it, and it was really nice to be able to like see it in person and have someone in real life also be part of it. And like she's been beaming about it, and just more shows like the community of it all. Like for me personally, that's how I enjoy these things. And then I personally feel really good, and then we share it, and then other people were so happy.
So lovely. And it was so lovely to meet her. I definitely want to try to come back and do I was like, I just need to go do New Jersey with you. Like, I want to go do you're New York with you, or you're New Jersey with you.
That would be so.
And then we definitely have to have a book launch. Like we need to do
Yeah.
like a February event or something in New
Oh my
York.
God. Yeah. Yep.
So we're
And people just need to like be open-minded to different types of community. Like that was what that was. That wasn't a group, in my opinion, because
yeah.
I don't feel beholden to anything. I didn't know what to call it when I showed up. It was just like, it was it was like what birthday parties could be type of thing. I don't know. I don't like holidays, but I think it's like we could have these types of get-togethers, which is what Black people do, cookouts and things like that. You know, it's just gathering and being safe and going, oh, blah, 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 for no reason.
Yeah.
It's inspiring. I was very excited.
We can just do it anytime we want.
I know.
That's what was cool too. I was just like, I just decided to get on a bus and go to New York and throw a thing, and people showed up, and it was fun, and we can just do that. And that's
how we move forward, because
we didn't have to have any membership roles, and we didn't have to like define a mission. We just got together and like supported each other.
It was dynamic. Think about how it made me excited. Me and Christina were like, oh, we have to do one now, because it's almost like sometimes you need a little push from some white confidence, and like you know, you're that's what I was gonna say about that. It's like you were like, it probably has a thing. It has a hotel. It has a bar, and it worked out though.
White women have confidence
for some things. And that's something that white women could really do, is tell Black women, like, why aren't you doing this? Like, because we are, as much as we don't think anybody, well, it's also confirmed. If I have to do things like white people are really mad about it, but an in-person event I think would be really fun for me. But it was nice to go to something of yours first and see how kind of like I don't want to say thrown together in a bad way, but like it was just thrown together, and I can do something like that versus needing a perfect.
It was thrown together. And for context, y'all, I threw an event at a place that didn't exist because I didn't bother to check. So there you go.
But it all worked out. And see how we're only talking about how it all worked. And it was so, for me to see that, it's like perfection gets me sometimes too. And like, oh, I can do something nice. And like, have you, and even if it was just me and my friend and no one showed up, that'd be fun too. And like,
it was a good time. It was a good time. At some point in the night, I was just passing around $50 necklaces and telling people to just choose one. So
I'm telling you, Christina's already, I'll send you the picture. She's already took a picture in hers going out. Like she over the moon. She was so excited.
And the one that she chose actually has earrings, so I'm going to be sending those or like bringing them the next time too.
And it's just like that radiates, and it's like so nice.
That, right? Even that, I make these necklaces, and the literal one that I made, the literal one that you chose, I was like, you know what? This doesn't appeal to me, but it'll probably appeal to somebody. And then like that was the one you loved. And I was like, you see, like just like make art, put things in the world, you know.
Right. And like just because it's not for you doesn't mean it's not, or you haven't seen it before. You don't know. Get some, white man confidence, white woman confidence. That's really what cults taught me though too, is those were overconfident men. I would never want to do the things they did, but they had no awareness and people just followed them. That's concerning. What can I learn from that? And like, I have a good reason to do things. I don't want to exploit people. I don't set up a Patreon. Like that's a whole thing. The whole scamming people when they themselves aren't canceling it. And that's you should feel guilty. That's a white man looking zoomed in for something to feel bad about because it's good. Probably that's why. Because when you're enjoying something and something is good, it's like, well, we got to find something to feel bad about here.
There's also people, and this is part of whiteness too, and this goes back to the special interest. People think that the obsession is the problem. People think that the enjoyment, people say, oh my God, I'm obsessed with your content. Is this a cult? Like, no. And also the religious fanatics is not what makes it a cult either, right? Like obsession, superfan behavior is fascinating and has all of these levels, but like it's the manipulation and the exploitation of labor. That's what makes it a cult,
It's the leader of the free world part. But
I do think we have this, like why are you dancing? Why are you dancing? If it's not a cult, like why are you doing this? Why are you enjoying? Why are you having fun? If it is it a cult? But that's also why people think they can just flip it around and be like, oh, but you can have a good cult. And I'm like, no, you're literally asking me, can you can you motivate people to give you unhealthy levels of love and devotion and labor, right? Like, we know
Right.
that when we say cult, we know that we're saying like they're doing this unhealthy thing. And you're
Yeah.
asking if you can like take that and do it for good. No, no. And this is why, again, when we have a good experience, like I definitely walked away going, maybe I didn't need to stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning, but I didn't walk away going like, was that a cult? Was that a good cult? No, because nobody was exploited or manipulated.
Right. Oh my gosh. The white people, they always need something to fear. That psychological addiction to suffering is so real, and y'all use it any
So
chance you
real.
can.
It is so
Someone
real.
worry for me? Calm down, okay? Not everything is a battle or a brunch. Sometimes you just went and you ate and you had too much fun. Oh,
Oh,
but
yeah.
you
The
know,
fear mongering today has been extra. So, anyway,
yeah,
we should probably wrap up.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank
It's so funny. It feels like so different now that I've seen you in person.
you. Yeah, I do give off not 5'1". Apparently, I've been told.
You have tall charisma. Yeah, yeah. I always
And
get
that's the
told
kind of
that
biracial I
people.
am.
So I'm 5'5", and people are always like, "I thought you were taller," and I'm like, "You have tall energy." I'm like, tall
Yeah,
energy in
taller than
this
me.
house. We have 6-foot white man energy on this
Yeah.
on this
And then I'm
podcast
just
today.
walking around. I feel that way too. I don't feel short, but then and then I see a picture. I'm like, oh, all right. I was looking up at everybody.
You're a
Fine.
small dog, aren't you?
Yeah. I'm just like, oh, me and Fran, we fit, a
Oh,
lot.
oh my goodness.
But yeah,
Amazing.
was
Thanks so
fun.
much. We'll chat
Thanks.
next week. Everybody follow Rebecca on Patreon. We're still
Yes,
going to
I'll
try to
see you
convince her
there.
to write a book. We'll see what happens.
You'll watch me figure it out over there.
That's exactly. All right. See
Bye.
you.